So, warm welcome for Marcus. Over to you.
Thank you. So much.
And to start the movie, you simply just press that.
Press that, yeah. I think the first thing I'm going to do is go to a black screen so we don't look at me behind me, which feels like too much. Thank you so much, Kari. And thanks all of you for coming at this early hour. There's clearly some serious nepotism in terms of who gets selected as a speaker here at Creative Mornings, but it's true, and it's been so great, Kari, getting to know you through Amanda over the last few years. A real gift. I find myself feeling emotional, as Pia pointed out, listening to my dear friend Veda Hilly play in public for the first time in 2.5 years. And just by way of introduction and also in relationship to the theme, wilderness, Veda and I are very good friends and longtime collaborators. Years ago, though, to me, she was just the cool-looking, in the art school way, late 20s musician I'd pass on Commercial Drive, who everyone knew had just opened for Alanis Morissette at GM Place, as it was once called. It was the late 1990s. We were living in Tidal Flats Co-op at the time on Odlum in East Van, about 10 meters from Clark Drive. Our eldest son was 2 years old. For fun, he and I used to go get Costco apple fritters from Joe's Cafe and walk back down the hill to Clark and sit on the sidewalk and go like this to semi-trucks blasting by, trying to get them to toot their air horns. My son Zach's first word was big truck. And after a year, my partner Amanda, Kari's friend, threw up her hands. She said, "I can't do it anymore." Amanda grew up in the country, in the Ottawa Valley. She's the child of legit draft-dodging, back-to-the-land, commune-starting American hippies. Her childhood was canoeing in Algonquin Park in the real-life shadow of the group of 7, eating their family's pet cow for dinner, playing in the living room of the house her father built into the side of a radioactive rock with a pet owl her dad had tamed somehow. And with a 2-year-old in perpetual tow, the truck-clogged smog of Clark Drive felt like a prison to Amanda. So she found work on the Gulf Islands, and then I did too, weirdly. I also got my first writing grant that year. Thank you, Canada Council for the Arts. Anyway, we rented a 3-bedroom waterfront pan abode on the north end of Salt Spring Island for $800 a month. Yeah. And for the first time in my life, I lived outside of a major urban center for 1 year. I nearly lost my mind. I never finished the play I got the grant for. Apologies, Canada Council. What saved me, smoking more dope than any human being ever should, and dancing to Veda's album. Here is a picture, which she had just now played you a song from. I brought a copy with me. Didn't know Veda, but brought it with me. I dance a lot, as Kari mentioned, to pop music, mostly, often Taylor Swift. It's actually part of my writing practice now. I type furiously for 10 or so minutes, and then I get up and dance. Type, dance, type, dance. I find that it helps. It opens me up. It moves what's in my head into and through my body. I'm a very cerebral person. Words roll and bounce relentlessly through my brain. Dancing makes them feel more physical, corporeal, more real. And I started that lifelong practice, dancing while I write, on Salt Spring Island, listening to the brilliant Veda Hilly's album, inspired by Emily Carr's paintings about this place, this land, its wilderness. 23 years later, she's one of my best friends and closest collaborators. Veda, of course, not Emily Carr. Thank you, friend. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Wilderness. Our friend, the Toronto-based experimental filmmaker Francie Duran, is the most urban person I know. And when I told her we were going to move to Salt Springs, she said, "You can't. You're the most urban person in the world." Francie was right. So when this most urban person in the world thinks about the wilderness, this is what comes into his head. A place where it's actually possible to get lost, not know where you are. Danger. Physical, yes, but also emotional. The fear of being left behind. Twists and turns you can't predict. Not having the tools you need, if you're me in the wilderness, having to invent them. Improvise. Needing others. Being forced to depend on them. Truly not knowing what's going to happen, if it's all going to turn out okay. You can probably see where I'm going. When I think about wilderness, I try to think about kayaking up the Broken Islands or Amanda's dad, Jeff, taming a wild owl, but really what I'm thinking about is what I do, my writing. It's the wilderness for me. The chatter of my head roiling away inside of me in relationship to what's occurring around me, to those I love and in the world, and dancing too. The period after September 11, 2001 was a seminal kind of wilderness for me as a 30-year-old Arab Canadian who exactly matched the profile of the dozen or so Middle Eastern men who boarded aircraft in a number of American cities and executed the most devastating terrorist attack in US history. It's a long time ago now, our generation's JFK assassination moment, but if you remember, in the wake of that heinous tragedy, a lot of things were said in what we used to call the mainstream media. Nothing like this has ever happened before. We will never laugh again, by David Letterman. Fuck that, is what I thought. How many hundreds of thousands of people die, are killed, murdered, all the time because of you, your military machine, our military machine, your capitalism, our capitalism. So, when the CBC approached me and asked me to create some kind of response to 9/11 for broadcast, I thought, fuck it. I went into the wilderness. I said to myself, yes, I share a last name with more than one of the perpetrators. Yes, I see how people now look at me when I walk down the aisle of an airplane if I'm not with my white wife and small children, that I am suspect, dangerous. But I reject this. I also reject that these very same things must mean the opposite, that I must be a victim to be felt sorry for or outraged on behalf of because of racial profiling or US imperialism or whatever. I said, not doing that. What I want is to laugh. That's the scary thing to try to do. I told my first 9/11 joke on primetime national radio about 3 weeks after the fact. And because it was in the context of these Arab stereotype characters me and my buddy Kamir created for it, they're Ali and Ali, which Carrie mentioned, two clownish hucksters who just want to please and sell stuff, they immediately went, too soon? Too soon? Oh, so sorry, so sorry. Yeah, not sure I could get away with it now, but... Over a couple of years, as 9/11 turned into the war on terror and hundreds of thousands of dead Iraqis, a series of CBC sketches became a show that toured for 6 years. It's called Ali and Ali and the Axis of Evil. I don't have to explain it. It's satire. I'm not going to I'm not sure I could do it now. It's Boratish funny accents, and they're about as far from what some people now call woke as you can possibly imagine, but the work has a serious idea at the heart of it. One that animates, I think, most of my work in some way or other, that the ideas we have about others and their difference, those ideas actually, kind of by definition, say more about us than the others that they purport to define. The show was a big success, but I'll never forget when we performed it in Montreal on the night of the Madrid terrorist bombings in 2004. It's a funny show. We didn't get a single laugh. That was a kind of wilderness too. Amanda said, what's so great about it is you guys are showing your freaks. She's such a hippie. But it's true. That's a kind of wilderness to me, revealing the freak you are inside, that you try to hide, the space that feels too dangerous to occupy, the thing it feels wrong to say. And that's a great gift of this work, the opportunity not only to discover that, but also to take it out and let it strut. and realize that showing your freak, that thing you fear will make others shun you, is something that others actually like. Because, well, we're social animals, right? Being left behind, alone, abandoned, it's the most basic of human fears. It's funny though, people ask me sometimes why I don't write that kind of satire, the Ali and Ali stuff anymore, which I don't. Much as I love politics and jokes, it's because it doesn't feel wild anymore, uncharted. When we made that show, when I was writing a lot of satire, news and politics was something you read about in one or other newspaper, all of which were basically the same. Or listened to carbon copy, pompous-ass old white men intoned gravely and seriously about. There was basically one story, and that was it. The kind of transgressive, like counterculture, take the piss thing we were making then, it's the dominant culture now. It's Twitter and YouTube. It's also been appropriated by the far right. It's Reddit and 4chan. It's literally Donald Trump's shtick. That's why I don't watch Stephen Colbert anymore. It just all feels like part of the attention machine to me. I'm more interested in what I don't know and where I'm not sure we're going. In 2010 or so, my buddy James Long and I, Veda's buddy too, and I were driving up to work at the Caravan Farm Theatre in Armstrong, BC, and a couple of hours in, we stopped off at a river to smoke a joint. Not a good idea on the highway, but anyway. Another buddy of ours, a fantastic artist, had just sent out this mass email to many of us in the community, basically promoting a pyramid scheme. He was like, I've realized that my life is like not fully realized, and I found this thing that if I pay this amount of money and you pay me, it's gonna allow me, it's these practices. And we were like, holy fuck, what is going on? Like this guy is like an amazing artist. He's our age, he's in his mid-40s, amazing artist, fantastic family, he owns a house in Vancouver, and he's feeling like there's enough wrong with him and his life that he needs to like pass on a pyramid scheme to his community. So we started talking about this by the river, smoking a joint, about men, about middle age, about competition, about ourselves, and about how we in fact felt most competitive, Jamie and I, with each other. Good friends, collaborators, with the same job, one that nobody gives a shit about, and yet, when push came to shove, we felt this constant pressure to prove ourselves better than the other, more successful, richer, smarter, more attractive. The show that came out of that conversation was this one, called Winners and Losers. It played here, actually. We started by trying to write a play. This is stupid. We started to write a play about two Russian novelists competing to write the best novel, which is a really stupid idea for a play. But in the morning, what we did first was play these games we made up. We played two games. Name a person, place, or thing and debate whether it's a winner or a loser, and we have to take opposite points of view. If we agree, we just throw it out. Or like pick a topic and debate who's better at it. Like, I don't know, who's the better cook, who's the better lover, husband, father, whatever. And after 3 weeks, we read all the writing about the novelists, really boring. And we listened to the transcriptions of the improvisations, which we recorded, and we went, oh my God, that's a show. We had no idea that that would be a show. It was a game we were playing. The show itself is edited versions of those transcripts. It starts fun, like a drinking game. It's just the two of us being ourselves, and then becomes more personal. It turns on the dynamic that exists between Jamie and I, a white guy from a broke working class family, and a brown guy with a fancy education and a banker brown father, but both from emotionally broken families. Who's the winner? Who's the loser? At the climax, we tell each other why the other is a loser. Yeah, we actually helped each other write those. This is one things that weren't improvised. We had to actually I had to take Jamie's one that he wrote about me and go, okay, you gotta make it tougher this way. You gotta make it, this is how you can really get me. The first time we read it out loud in front of others was during the Push Festival here. Or not here, actually, but anyway, an industry event called Push Off. And when Jamie read why you are a loser, why he spoke why he thinks I'm a loser to our public, it was the only time I've ever seen him cry. We toured that show for 5 years in 20 cities and 12 countries. We had to stop living together Because we realized in order to make the show work, it's actually a lot of room in it for improvisation, so we would make shit up in the middle of the show that was scripted, but it would be like the thing that happened that morning would suddenly be in the show, and we'd be debating that. We ran for 5 weeks in Toronto. I walked around Toronto by myself day after day for hours, planning how I was gonna get him that night, obsessively replaying every little thing he had changed and thrown into the show the night before. I almost had a nervous breakdown. Because going into places you haven't been before, the wild, let's say, is risky, even when you're doing a theater play, which is my silly name for what we do, because it is silly, let's face it. But what's remarkable to me about that one is that Jamie and I are closer now than we ever have been. Our collaboration is ongoing and might last for the rest of our lives. And I have no doubt that that is because we went through that experience with each other. There's so many I want to tell you about. Joyful ones too, right? The wilderness discovery of what it means to write for and about your own neighborhood, for your own neighbors, which I've had the great pleasure to do twice, working with Veda, writing the East Van Panto Wizard of Oz and East Van Panto Pinocchio, to see how the people I know and love most, my community, thrills to the sight of their world, the Drive, Beck Women's, the PNE, mythologized, live and on stage and in song. And I've also, of course, to work with Veda Hilly, who does the brilliant localized stand-ups of big pop songs for every panto, including the all-time great line sung by Dorothy in Wizard of Oz to the tune, I believe, of Walking on Sunshine. I live in Port Coquitlam. Oh yeah. It's different than Coquitlam. Oh yeah. It's like my favorite line from anything ever. Like it's... But the last theater play foray into the bush I want to share with you is the most profound exploration I have had the privilege of doing, Veda being an integral part of it for its 10 or 15 year arc. It is our 10 or 15 year collaboration with an artist named Niall McNeil, with whom I have co-written 2 big shows, Peter Panties, which is at the Push Festival in 2011, and the one in the video I'm going to share with you now, called King Arthur's Knight, which Veda wrote and composed the music for both shows. So give me a break and give you a break from me talking live. I'm going to show you a little short documentary about that show, if I can make it work. If culture is to be any use whatsoever, it has to reflect the world that we actually are in all its complexity. Culture can bring folks in a room whose experiences may be very different and who may, as in this case, have been honestly historically separated for millennia and challenge that. That's what culture is for.
King Arthur's Knight is King Arthur's story through Niall McNeil's eyes and vision.
Enough! Leave me!
As a professional actor, is in shows his whole life growing up.
King Arthur's Knight is about the kingdom called Camelot. I write it with my co-writer, Marcus Patrick Youssef.
This is the second show we've written together. And it's always a question, no matter who you're collaborating with. How are we going to do this? How's this going to work? Who's going to write what? And so Niall and I just started hanging out. And what I did was I recorded absolutely everything. A couple of things came clear from that I could actually begin to work with the transcriptions of those recordings to shape a script. Another thing that came really clear was there would be times when Niall would just go, hang on, this is a song. And he would just speak a song. And a couple of times out of 5, the lyric structure would be extraordinary. I'd show it to Veda and she'd go, I want to write music to this. In that process that we began to devise, which we were just making up, we discovered a few things. One, Niall and my pleasure in working and writing and jamming together. 2, Niall's gifts as a writer.
No, to raise my son.
And our ability to do that in relationship to each other in a way that seemed fairly productive. This particular show is real excited interest from a place called the Down Syndrome Research Foundation in Burnaby, BC. Our cast includes 3 additional actors who we've been working with for 3 years.
any favors.
We like to do a really good show. It is going to be sold out. I'm not scared. We're ready, we're brave, we're tough, and we can do it.
I cry a lot, if you haven't noticed. It's related to the dancing. There's lots to talk about there, and we can maybe hit some of it in the Q&A in terms of what we do and how we do it. But what I wanted to share, I think the most important thing to share in relationship to that is Niall McNeil is now one of the busiest artists we know. It's crazy. He just wrapped a web series, a retelling of Bonanza. His next musical, co-written with Anton Lipovetsky, who was in the King Arthur, who now got to know through King Arthur, will open at Musical Stage Company in Toronto year after next. Filmmaker Marie Clement's documentary about him and this mythology of family he has. I'm his son, adopted son now, which is very exciting. What are you? You're auntie, right? Just saying. It opens at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, in the fall, and we start shooting the King Arthur movie adaptation, directed by John Bolton and produced by Opus 59 Films in October. Imagine what can happen, you know, when you throw on the backpack, whatever metaphor, wilderness metaphor, and go out, you know? We never could have imagined that the work we began 10 or 15 years ago would lead to that. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, and I think it's pretty related, there's a last wilderness, and Kari alluded to it, or natural state that I want to talk about, because I think like so much of the real wilderness, so the way we usually think about it, it's endangered. It's the wilderness of human contact, of corporeal presence with other human bodies, what we're doing a little of here right now. Powerful economic and ideological forces, I believe, are driving our migration to digital spaces, the so-called metaverse. This migration has been happening for my whole adult life, but it got a crazy, unexpected, nuclear-powered turbo boost from the pandemic, and I'm not saying it's all bad. But I am saying that the trips into the unknown I have shared with you today would not have been possible unless they were taken with others, in others' full embodied presence, so that it's not just our minds and eyes and fingers that are communicating, but our whole bodies communicating to each other in an unconscious language, like dancing, that runs underneath the chatter in our heads. And I fear we are losing this. And I think it's really important we don't. And so I thank you for coming here in person. Those of you who have, some of you are, you know, in the digital space, who have witnessed Veda and my presentation, not only through your own eyes, but through the eyes and bodies of everyone else here. I'll finish with a short reading. This is the end of the introduction I wrote to the published version of the two plays that Niall, Veda, and I made together. In this introduction, I basically talk about process and how we do what we do. And this is just the last little chunk of it. Of course, there are many other considerations, questions, confusions, and quandaries. As Niall once told his mother Joan after a National Arts Centre-led conference about disability theatre at the Stratford Festival, "Oh, now I understand inclusion. It's confusion." Yes. It has also led to one of my most valued and rewarding collaborative relationships, one that demands my fullest presence and deepest, most authentic self. It has forced me to be attentive not just to Niall's impulses, but more attentive to my own. It has made me a better writer. That is because this work challenges the classifications and categorizations that neurotypicals like myself assume must be the only legitimate means we have to define what occurs in the world. They are not. There are worlds we can't name or even imagine within every one of us. That is one reason human beings make art, to offer ourselves a glimpse. Thanks very much.
So when we invite speakers, we ask them to give a gift as part of the giving economy, a gift, a creative gift to the creative community, and that was one hell of a gift. So it's time for questions. We have about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A, and you've got Veda and Marcus, and Mark is going to run around with the microphone. So who's got a question from what we've heard? Oh, okay. Okay, wow.
Hello.
Go for it.
Hi, stand up, I think. Yes. Hi, my name is Jai, and I wanted to pick up on a question that, or a theme that's been sort of running around in my head, which is around satire. Marcus talked a little bit about how satire seems to be dead. I think this is you too, Veda, because obviously you do the panto, so I think that's a big aspect of satire. But satire is meant to point out what's ridiculous, and everything in the world seems ridiculous today. And yet satire has been a useful tool to kind of, for folks that are on the margins, to address inequities in power. So what is the role of satire today, and how can we use it to when everything seems completely insane?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer, Jai, for that, honestly. I've stopped engaging with satire, which was my defining form, except in the panto, because I felt like I knew who it was speaking to. I felt like it was a shared exercise. And then literally, I read a great book a few years ago, kind of what I said is started drawn from it, called Kill All the Normies. It was some Irish woman's PhD thesis, and it was about how the strategies, satirical strategies, the transgressive strategies that those of us, you know, in the 90s used on the left to, and progressive, whatever, to, that we assumed that those were inherently progressive, those strategies, because officially serious was like the dominant culture, mainstream, institutional voice. And the whole thesis of her book, or her PhD thesis, was that we were wrong.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, in the panto, so the panto is a Christmas show but nothing to do with Christmas, and it's, and my job in the panto is to rewrite pop songs and have them fit into the play and have them be ridiculous. And so it's kind of a satire, but it's actually secretly just a way to connect people in another real way, because we're surrounded by all these thin, you know, copies of connection that were being sold. And so I'm just constantly trying to make things happen like the things that is happening in this room. And so having music that people know, but then waking them up with different lyrics and then making them laugh. I feel like making people laugh is more subversive than satire. I guess when a satire also seems to have an anger at the heart of it, and I think that I'm trying to find the other things, because there's a lot of anger, which is necessary, absolutely, but it's not the thing that I can bring to the world. Yeah.
I've got a half-formed thought here, just quickly, last thing to say on it, which is something about, too, when everything out there was serious, it was all very serious, it felt like poking that and going to that was really important, but everything out there isn't serious. Like everything, like Donald Trump is both a fascist and a clown simultaneously. That's his trick. You know what I mean? Somewhere, it's in that territory for me somewhere. I don't know the answer, but.
So related to that really well-asked question is, I've always been curious, Marcus and both Veda, about how you both use humor as a way to get to much, much deeper things. And it's beautiful what you just said, in that you feel like at the heart of satire is anger, whereas what I've always seen in both of your work, which I've been watching for decades and decades now, and I'm so grateful for, is that there's an incredible, incredible compassion that's in that humor, but it's a way almost to deal with the grief of what's going on. So, you know, it's more my question of, like, you're both doing it brilliantly, but how do artists, like, hold on to that hope and use what I think is a fantastic tool, and maybe the ultimate tool to deal with the chaos that's around us, in humor? Like, how do you, give us some advice.
Oh, God. You have something?
Yeah, I've always got something. So one of the things I think we've both discovered, and it played to, I won't speak, well, I will speak for you, Veda, but that played to both our instincts as writers or as creators, is like an excitement about that which, like, is associative, like isn't logical, isn't like, and spending a bunch of time, as we have, with an ever increasing number of people with developmental disabilities has fundamentally changed my approach to how I do what I do. And I think the instincts were there with both of us, like the way we work and how we kind of grab things. But it's like Niall and any of the folks with disabilities that we work with on a regular basis, like, we will be in the deepest, most serious moment of something, and then suddenly, like, it'll be a fart. And like, I discovered that you can do that. I learned that from Niall. That the idea, it's what I said at the end of that thing, that the idea that there's these fixed ways or categories and, you know, genres, whatever, things that have to happen in certain ways isn't necessarily true. And one of the great gifts I think Niall has and people with Down syndrome have is that they're present. That's kind of like part of their thing. And so they're not bound by the same, you know, there's lots of challenges they have, but they're not bound, in my experience, by the same narrative kind of spinning through their head about how things are supposed to go. And so I think also silliness, that silliness. But I think you're right, Pia, like I think it comes, that holding on to that idea of love as opposed to rage, that feels really important to me right now. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's always just about trying to find the thing that makes you present. Like, I totally agree that that's what we're in continued work with this amazing gang of people, and it's been, and we were talking about this in the car on the way over, that also part of the pandemic experience for us was an increased realization of the stripping of our artistic egos is absolutely necessary. And it's just not interesting if it's about our own, about making ourselves bigger. Or, I mean, even though I know, I will speak for you, I know that we both crave attention mightily. Mark and I share a birthday. We're very similar.
August 11th.
Yeah, August 11th. In case you're not doing anything and you have some presents. Anyway, so what I've found is that humor is the hardest thing, and as I get older, like I feel like I was very self-important in my early years, and some good stuff came out of that, and I'm so glad that phase is over, and I'll do anything to laugh or make someone laugh. Maybe not anything.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay.
So my question is about audience. So I spoke a bit at the beginning about 2022 being a reunion with audience for me in theater and performance spaces. And in my work in teaching, I have the audience back in the room in person because that's what happened. They all had to come back. What would you like all of us to know about the need for audience right now, for performers and for your work?
Well, it's what you were talking about with the more communication with more than your eyes and ears, like the full physical communication. What is it called? Biofeedback? It's a real freaking thing. And I fear, like you do, that we'll just get flattened, like the flat version of connection that we get on the internet. It is still connection, but it's just really skinny. And without being able to hear the breath and smell the smells and all the stuff, it's not complete. It's just not complete.
Yeah, like just two quick things on that. One is that Kari, you and my partner Amanda, and I think all the people who suffered through the last 2 years in schools have done us an extraordinary favor by suffering through that. And it's real clear in schools now, like that shit can't continue in that way. I mean, we'll do what we have to do to keep people safe, obviously, but it's so clear how important that presence is in the school context, it seems to me. And then the other part, I'd say, and this is just a plug, but Veda Hilly's playing a concert tomorrow night, Saturday at the Culture. I think there's like 5 or 10 tickets left, so if you don't have yours, there's an opportunity to experience it. I will be there in real life, and there's nothing quite like that.
I overheard someone say the other day, creativity as much as community is a team sport. It always has been. I missed your name.
Oh, sorry, it's
Pia. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I see 3 hands, 4. Tell us your name, introduce yourself when you...
Yes. Stand up, please. Thank you, Marcus and sister. I'm Shiraz Ramji. I created Grandparents Film Festival and we have met. My wilderness starts in the morning when I take transit and I look at people because I call every person a fruit tree. So it's an orchard of fruit trees for the morning breakfast. So it's a nice talk to talk. My question is about the marginality of the elders and seniors. I found 20%, there are 8 million grandparents in Canada, and that's 20%. And everybody looks at elderly people and people with disabilities, visual or invisible. So I was asking, what do you feel about the representation of elders in the theater, and what can be done to improve it? Thank you.
Well, it's so tough because we're simultaneously really wanting all the young people to just take over. Because I feel like we're pretty close to being elders. Are we elders yet? No, you're not admitting it. I mean, I think that I'm always interested in hearing perspectives from all over, and I feel like there's so many great senior artists right now. I mean, I feel like I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm sorry, I was just holding off on my joke, which is my joke title for myself is Emerging Elder. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, Veda and I are in the middle of writing a show right now, which is entirely about that. And it's people with disabilities, but also you don't see any older people in the entire show until Act 2, and it's another place. I mean, honestly, I think it's our culture's, mortal's not the right word, our culture's terror and silence about death. And infirmity. And we haven't, in this culture, other cultures I think have done a better job of navigating that space, but it's a taboo here. And I think that's very connected with the degree to which our elders are not only not represented, but warehoused and silenced.
Kari, you're hosting. It's 10 after, so I think maybe one more question and then, okay.
Hello, nice to meet you. My first time here, my friend invited me to be here. My question that I like to know is, what is your why story? Why are you doing what you're doing? And when did you decide to do what you're doing? When did you decide to sing? When did you decide to be a writer? What is your why? Yeah. Oh, my name is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. I liked music a lot when I was little and began to play through lessons when I was very small. And I've always been, and apparently I was very insistent on that, so I'm glad of that, and my parents helped me out. But then it was when I started writing music in my early 20s, when I was in art school, and I just, a friend of mine said that she thought I could write music, because I was looking for a medium, and I just knew immediately that it would be the most interesting thing for me, and I hoped it would last, and it really has, and that's, I feel like, the only why that's worth chasing. Is it like completely compellingly interesting to you to make the things that you're making? And you just, you have to find the thing that grabs you and won't let go.
Yeah, I echo that. As I alluded to in my talk, I had a very privileged upbringing. I lived as a preteen in New York and as a teenager in London, England. I saw a lot of theater was central to my experience and identity, and it was a bit of a shock to me to move somewhere where it's not so central, because I was like, but it's really central. But I got over that. And so it just kind of was always what I've been doing. It's like my joke to people I went to high school with is I'm still doing the same thing I was doing in grade 9, like, which feels both really cool and really dumb. And I would just say that, the trade-off in terms of the crap money, and we do okay now, but we've been at it for 30 years, is like, this does get me emotional, but it's like, I get to work with people I love all the time. Like, I almost never work with somebody I don't love anymore. Like, what a fucking gift that is, right? Like, I've had the other experience too, which is fine, but this is better.